Welcome back everyone, my name's Caleb, I'm the Furniture Cowboy. My wife and I have created a business here in Austin, Texas, taking random pieces of furniture we find and turning them into something truly spectacular. In this video, we're going to be going through one of my favorite projects we've done to date. We've been working with Good Bones Paint for a while and they sent us this awesome color. There's no name for this color yet, but I absolutely love it. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Part 1 for this piece, we're going to do some dowels. The first thing I have to do is figure out how tall those dowels need to be to fit on the drawer fronts. In this video, we're going to leave the dowels a little longer than they need to be, and you'll see why later. I cut one to make sure it's going to fit nicely with just a little extra before measuring one drawer, multiplying that by 6, and if you're using half-inch dowels, this will tell you exactly how many dowels you need. After that, it's time to get cutting. Believe it or not, the hardest part of cutting dowels at this point has become keeping track of how many I've cut. My strategy for this has been to cut them 5 at a time, but even counting off 5, 10, 15, sometimes I pull out the next 5 and I'm like, is this 15 or did I just cut 15? And you can lose track really quickly. Next up, I cut everything in half on the bandsaw. Looking at the footage, everything looks like it cut perfectly in half, but sometimes these can twist a little bit without you even realizing, and that can make it a real pain when you're attaching them later. Spoiler alert, that is what happened. Once I had all of those dowels cut for the drawer fronts, I repeated this exact same process for those pocket indents on the side of the dresser. We're going to be putting dowels in those as well. In this video, you see me check to make sure the dowel is going to fit in each one of those indents and not just the top one. What I should have done is went over to the other side of the dresser and checked those 3 as well, because they were actually just a little bit smaller, which causes some problems down the road. With all those dowels cut, it's time to sand off any tear out caused by that bandsaw or miter saw. And once again, I'm so thankful that my siblings are here in town to help me out with this. I put them right to work hand sanding while I use the orbital. I actually had a second orbital sander that they could have used, but hand sanding builds character. I didn't tell them I had a second one so they wouldn't be upset. Next on the docket, it's time to prep and clean. First thing we gotta do is remove all those handles. Once those are off, we give the whole body of the dresser with some simple green diluted with water. Once that's out of the way, we've got to go ahead and remove those drawers. This piece had some pretty annoying drawer stops. The top 2 drawers, I couldn't do anything about the stops. I basically just had to yank them out as hard as I could. Once those top 2 drawers were out, I could pull out the next drawer and reach over from above to kind of disengage that stopper. Once those were out, we went ahead and vacuumed the inside of the dresser. We gave the inside of the dresser a deep clean as well. Part 3, fixing that veneer. So pretty much this whole front band of veneer was in really rough shape, peeling off. We chose to go ahead and completely remove that piece of veneer. With a putty knife and a little bit of elbow grease, it came right off. With that old piece out of the way, I sanded everything smooth and got the surface ready so we could attach the 2 new pieces of edge banding. My wife Lilu did 99% of the work here, attaching that banding with the iron before cutting off any excess with a razor blade. With those two pieces attached, there was a small line in the center between them that we had to go in and wood fill. Once that wood filler dried, we went in with the orbital sander to clean everything up before wiping everything down with a microfiber cloth. Which leads us right into part 4, prime and repair. I go ahead and prime every single part of the dresser except for those side indents, since dowels are going to be covering those anyway. Once everything's primed, it becomes way easier to see any dents and dings so that we can then go ahead and wood fill those spots. There was some pretty intense wood grain on that side top piece popping through, so we wood filled that whole piece, and we went ahead and wood filled that line between the edge banding one more time just to be safe. Lilu went in with some caulk to clean up any gaps or separations. And that's going to wrap it up there. It's time to attach some dowels. So I mentioned earlier when I was cutting the dowels, they can twist as they go through the bandsaw, which makes this step much harder. If you get a twisty piece, it's not going to be able to attach to the top and the bottom of the drawer front, so you have to pick one. You can kind of see this happening in a side-by-side here. For me, I picked the top since that's the edge that we're going to be routing over later. I knew that that needed to be attached really strongly. Here you can see on that bottom drawer, we got a little too caught up in trying to get both sides to stick. And if you do this too much, you can actually dry out the fuse at max, which means you have to start all over. I went ahead and took over since it was my fault that they twisted anyway, and I attached the rest of those dowels. We let everything dry before attaching a flush trim router bit to our router to clean up any overhang on the top of the drawer. We're definitely going to be doing this in the future from now on, and as you can see from the video, as we were routing over some of these dowels, some of them popped off. So I feel like this is actually a pretty good test in terms of durability. If you can route over the dowels without them popping off, there's probably not much risk of it popping off for years to come. Once we had the router put away, we went ahead and hand sanded over that whole edge, as well as reattaching those dowels that popped off. Next up, it's time to prime those drawer fronts. I love using this cardboard method to paint, but as you can see, all of these drawers are curved, so what I should have done is gone and cut a new piece of cardboard to follow that curve. With all those drawers primed, it was time to attach the dowels to the sides of the piece, and the last time we tried to do this, it was a bit of a nightmare, so we went out and bought ourselves a Milwaukee M12 Pin Nailer. This has quickly become one of the favorite tools that I own, and I can definitely understand the hype around Milwaukee tools. It just feels like Milwaukee gets the little things right. The small details that they put into this tool, it's pretty crazy. When you pull the safety, the flashlight automatically comes on so you can see what you're doing even if you're in a dark room. When you're loading in the pins, there's a little magnet that automatically pulls them into the correct orientation. I could go on about how great this thing is, but anyway, now that we had the tool, I went ahead and put one pin in each of the dowels on the drawer fronts just to be safe. I primed the sides of the piece and we wrapped up our evening. The next morning, Lilu woke up super early and headed over to the garage to wood fill each of those little indents caused by the pin nailer by hand. She actually finished this in 10 minutes, which blows my mind because it definitely would have taken me at least an hour. All the dowels are on, all the repairs have been made, which leads us right into part 6, paint. So this is the color that Good Bones custom made us. We've been wanting to try out some cool like Danish, Scandinavian pastel colors. That sounds so pretentious, but I promise it's a real thing. This color is exactly what we were looking for. There's no name for this color yet, but my wife and I thought it looked a lot like matcha, so that's what we're calling it. I painted the full body of the piece before moving on to painting the drawers. As I'm doing this, I'm moving those drawers around by pulling on the tracks on the back. I would advise against that. When I pulled one of the tracks, it popped off and I had to pin it back into place with a pin nailer. Once we finished with this project, I went out and bought a Lazy Susan, which is going to make this 10 times easier. I'll be able to just spin it around and I won't have to pull on anything or risk anything breaking. Once everything was painted, we followed it up with 3 coats of poly on everything, the body and the drawers, which gave this piece a really nice finish that I'm really happy with. Everything's painted and it's time for part 7, hardware. We usually skip this step because we didn't know that it was important, but this time we're starting off by cleaning everything with acetone. We're also going to be priming each one with Metal Primer by Rust-Oleum. Once that's dry on both sides, we go in with our favorite gold, which is just called Gold by Rust-Oleum. I go ahead and attach those drawer pulls. And y'all, that is it. Just to give you a reminder, here is what the piece looked like before. And here is what she looks like now. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. I feel like out of everything we've done, this one looks the most manufactured, which could be seen as good or bad. I know a lot of people like pieces that show their history and have a bit of character, but for me, I think it's absolutely incredible that we were able to create something that looks like it came out of a company's catalog or off their website. Anyway, I'm in love with this color. I hope they choose to make it an official color. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, comment down below, finger looking good, or something about matcha. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, it truly goes a long way to helping me grow. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.